everything just, so I just thought I'd wear that.
That's a really long way.
And my one brother, they're the same age. They're all talking about Aunt Lizzie. Great Aunt Lizzie. I'm going,
Well, between Bryan and
it's just like they're all the time. Those two guys are always like our
It's not till 3. I lost money. Google that. Pretty good about it.
You mute me when I need to be muted, right? I don't want people to hear me sing.
He became a Lucas.
no, it's 180.
It's actually a baby gift that somebody made.
It's in the order of service, right? Sometimes I don't. I'll go talk.
Oh, I know.
Chuck is doing it.
You couldn't use the name.
I'm so excited for your trip.
I wake up every morning like,
You're going to keep playing.
I will, yeah. And the group that, it's going to be 22 of us, group, and it's a tour for people who don't like tours. The bus doesn't leave till 10 in the morning, it's 8 a.m. or else.
I've done that. That's awesome.
Yeah, right?
That's when they put those big top in the game. You get up in the morning, we're doing 188.
Is the rest of the hymns right on there? Bubble Midas and
There it is.
Heart in Mind? All right.
It's really
I
I was afraid I did it wrong.
Cool.
It wasn't my fault this time. Sometimes it is.
just wait until next month.
Yes, yeah. But I just didn't know that's all.
Can you still hear me with my mic out this far? And can you hear me with my mic out this far? Can you hear me now? Okay, because I want to be able to drink coffee. The important things in life.
flying around.
Who's your worship assistant today?
Kathy. Oh, I forgot. I gotta ask Dawn. Oh, it's 10:30. I'll ask her later for the annual meeting. Kathy.
It's 10:30.
Oh.
do like bringing that little thing.
Well, and lighting the shamash too. Is that what we call it? The shamash? I don't know.
I've never heard that word.
That's the candle that lights things in the candelabra from Judaism.
Sounds Yiddish.
I need a hymnal. I'm leaving. Good morning. Didn't mean to walk out on you in the beginning, but I figured I needed a hymnal because it's hard for me to turn this way and see that. But we welcome everyone who has come and joined us in person, and we welcome everyone who's come to join us online. We're glad that you're all here. My name is Bryan, and my pronouns are he, him. And we'd also like to just make a few announcements, and I know some other people have announcements to share as well. So first and foremost, sometimes I neglect to say this, but we don't take an offering at this point, but there is a place to donate over there behind Alice somewhere. And then if you are participating online, we can certainly accept your gift or donation online as well through our website. We try to keep the service to 1 hour, hopefully not more than 1 hour and 15 minutes. And if you need to leave, like Chuck does today, feel free to leave. We don't want to keep any hostages. We also ask you to be seated, or if you need to move around quietly at the end during the postlude, because our musicians work very hard, and as a musician, not as wonderfully accomplished as some of these musicians, but as a musician, I appreciate that. So we appreciate your participation and understanding. Today we're going to be discussing forward thinking and my thoughts about names. And next Sunday, we're going to be commemorating the Climate Revival Initiative, and Dawn has worked very hard to help us get that going. We also have a workshop on Saturday that I have to miss, but it is going to be part of that Climate Revival Initiative. And on Friday night, we have a Good Friday service, which is usually not something you hear in a UU church, but we do things differently sometimes, and it's kind of fun. But that is also going to be part about the climate revival. I'm going to read the Lorax at the beginning of the service, and then we're going to move it through a more somber, melancholy time to just be, and we've got some other things planned for that as well. So it's going to be kind of like a triduum, or however you say that word, where we have 3 different things. Three, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? I don't know. Anyways, there's a fancy theological word that I should know about that. We're looking for volunteers still to work on the security plan committee. And also join Congresswoman Angie Craig, State Senators Aaron a bunch of people for a special South Metro Town Hall that will focus on federal government actions that are harming Minnesotans. Monday, April 14th at 6 p.m. For questions and registration information, guess who? C. Kelly. All right. 2 Common Good Interfaith Dialogue events are coming up. Monday, May 19th at Burnsville Community Education. And Monday, is that what that's supposed to be? And Monday, June 30th, there will be a picnic at Cliff Finn Park. See Chuck or Kelly if you need more information about those. Other announcements.
Weren't you going to ask about how many people will consider
Oh, yes.
going to the climate revival?
See, teamwork makes the dream work. Who among you, if you feel free not to raise your hand, but please tell Kathy if you are planning on being at the Climate Revival Workshop on Saturday, this Saturday coming up, April the 19th.
Could we just do a show of hands? Maybe?
Show of hands is great.
No, I'm going to the 50-50.
And if you know somebody who's not here, who today with us, that wants to be there, please have them contact Dawn and or Kelly. Other announcements?
Kathy. It's okay. It's the K thing.
Yes. For those of you who have the afternoon free, my chorus has a concert at 3 o'clock at Parkway Theater in Minneapolis. It's going to be a great show, and that's why I have to leave early.
It's only 15 minutes from here. It's very easy to get to.
Yeah. South Minneapolis. 3 o'clock.
Other announcements?
Eric and Sue Lund, who are the owners of the greenhouse down in Lakeville, and they have regular concerts over the summer. They're starting their new season, and they just announced their schedule, and Claudia Schmidt and T. Michael Rambo and a whole lot of people that we really like, and some new places, people that we haven't heard of are going to be performing. So see me if you want information about the schedule.
Also, April 27th, a Saturday in History Theater, a play for the Film Score Festival. To be 12 short movies with live score performed with the screening. 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. You can choose either one.
My chorus, Bella Lumina, has another concert coming up May 10th. We have 2 shows at 3 and at 7. That's the day before Mother's Day. It's Women's Voices from Broadway is the theme, and it should be loads of fun. There is limited seating. The 2 shows, there were only 180 seats for the 2 shows. So it will fill quickly. So we had 525 at our last concert.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Very cool. And I'll ask again for final announcements, just so you know, we've got all of the worship services planned for the rest of this fiscal year. Do not forget that April the 27th is our annual meeting, and then the next Sunday, May the 4th, is going to be Flower Communion, and we're going to have Hannah Beresonsi coming, the young lady that spoke with us last year, and I think the year before that. That's all I can remember, because that's as long as I've been here. And then we're going to be doing a music Sunday for the last Sunday that we meet in May, which I don't know the date, but it's the 3rd Sunday in May. So, real excited about the upcoming services as we wind down our fiscal year.
18th, I think.
18th. Oh, and that reminds me, we also do have our 3rd Friday service in May. One of my dear friends who is disabled, but a pastor in a UCC church, one of my former students, is going to join us via Zoom because he's also a fantastic musician. So it's going to be poetry and music, but with a Zoom presence from a person who's going to share with us about accessibility. So we try to cover lots of things, and it'll be really fun. So with that, I invite everyone to take a slow, deep, gentle breath and exhale just as intentionally to separate yourself from all the chaos of the world, the constant bombardment of news on your phone, and join us together in meditating on this musical prelude to our service. I invite everyone to remain seated and join us in our opening words. Welcome all to this time we spend together in love and fellowship.
We come in love and peace to spend time together in consideration for the future of this community.
The love we show, like a light, illuminates the path before us and invites others into this love and light along the way.
In community, we meld together our passions for social and environmental justice and love for all.
Together we can face uncertainty with love, cultivate compassion through our shared journey, live humbly in community, and even confront despair and hurt with the awe of life.
We center our beliefs in love, honoring opinions and core beliefs, knowing that it is our diversity of differences that binds us.
May this time be one of revelation through forward thinking and passion for what is ultimately important to our call and mission as a community.
And may we covenant together to journey together in love, in passion for justice, and in moving toward a future that is brighter, even in the midst of chaos and strife that surrounds us.
Therefore, in the spirit of forward thinking, we light this chalice together and we say,
may the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal with love, to help with compassion, to bless with joy, to serve you, spirit of freedom, in the fullness of community.
And now I invite you to rise as you are able and join us in our opening hymn, which if you're using the book is hymn 131.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us, will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us, will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Please be seated. Oh shoot, I'm supposed to be there.
Will you put this in the car?
Will you light a candle for me? All right, sorry, I have to go, folks.
Enjoy.
Have a good time.
You want me to read it?
What, oh, sorry, I didn't have your seat. Introduce.
This is Kathy.
With the beloved community.
That's right.
Okay.
Stand where the camera can see.
Oh, gosh, I don't know where that is.
Over by Bryan, please.
Okay. All right.
There you go.
Dakota Unitarian Universalist Church embraces its call to affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person and to engage in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We want to offer our love to those among the most often in need of affirmation, people who are imprisoned. We support the Unitarian Universalist presence and support in prisons and that prison outreach and its ministries that can save sanity, spirit, and even lives. And we acknowledge that the United States has 5% of the world's population and 25% of its prisoners. It is even worse for women. The U.S. holds nearly 33% of all women incarcerated worldwide. Racial disparity is also a major factor. Black people are 10 times more likely to be sent to prison for drug offenses than white people, although whites use and sell more drugs than blacks do. And those of Latinx origin are also overrepresented among those who are imprisoned. We commit ourselves to supporting the collective Unitarian Universalist movements to support prison reform and to assist those who are in the process of transition toward individual, internal, and external reformation themselves. We honor those who work in prison ministries, and we give our love to those who are incarcerated, knowing transformation is not only possible, but that it is often the single piece of hope that can change the lives of those who need love the most.
Often you don't see me open up my phone in the middle of service to read something, but that backspace button, whenever I created the OOS, it deleted my reflection, my reading, and my sermon. And I didn't notice it until after I printed it off and got here. So my reading is as such, and pray for my eyes. I chose this reading because I was looking for a poem about the theme for today. But this particular reading is something that is near and dear to my heart because it's from one of my favorite books that I read when I was in middle school, which was called junior high back then. And it is actually the reading that inspired me to find a poem, but I never found one. So now you get the reading. So this is an excerpt from The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. In Spanish, my name has too many letters. It means sadness. It means waiting. It is like the number 9. My grandmother says it stands for hope. The name is Esperanza. A muddy color, it feels to me. My name, it is the Mexican records my father plays on Sunday mornings when he is shaving, songs like Sobbing. It was my great-grandmother's name, and now it is mine. She was a horsewoman, too, born like me in the Chinese year of the horse, which is supposed to be bad luck if you're born female, but I think this is a Chinese lie, because the Chinese, like the Mexicans, don't like their women strong. My great-grandmother, I would have liked to have known her, a wild horse of a woman, so wild she wouldn't marry, until my great-grandfather threw a sack over her head and carried her off. Just like that, as if she were a fancy chandelier. That's the way he did it. And the story goes, she never forgave him. She looked out the window her whole life, the way so many women sit their sadness on an elbow. I wonder if she made the best with what she got, or was she sorry because she couldn't be all the things she wanted to be? Esperanza. I have inherited her name, but I don't want to inherit her place by the window. At school, they say my name funny, as if the syllables were made out of tin and hurt the roof of your mouth. But in Spanish, my name is made out of a softer meaning, like silver, not quite as thick as sister's name Magdalena, which is uglier than mine. Magdalena, who at least can come home and become Ninny, but I'm always Esperanza. Would like to baptize myself under a new name, a name more like the real one, the real me, the one nobody sees, the one inside me. Esperanza? No, maybe Lysandra or Maritza or Ziz or X simply. Yes, something like Ziz or X will do. When I was in middle school and read that book, which is written in the 1950s, or set in the 1950s, in Chicago, in a Hispanic Latino community, I began my own journey of trying to figure out where my name came from. spring is wonderful, right? And I was born with the name Bryan Lee Allen. Well, I wasn't born with that. My parents gave me that. And I remember back in the day, we read these books in middle school, and then the teacher would give us these worksheets where we had to answer all the questions. And I'm one of those ones that actually took it pretty seriously. So the questions were like, what does your name mean? Well, I had never thought about that before. I was 12. I never really thought about that. But, she got me thinking. And so I went home, asked a lot of questions. My parents were telling me all of these things. And I found out that my first name was chosen because my mom thought I was going to be a girl and she was going to name me Brianna. So maybe that's my drag name. I don't know. But anyway, but that didn't really come from any place other than that was my mom's favorite name, Brianna or Bryan. And she wanted to name me with a Y so that people wouldn't call me Brain. Okay, well, this is not giving me the meaning that I want, Mom. But then I talked to my dad about my middle name and my last name, and this is where things get a little bit more shaky. So he said my middle name, Lee, came from my 3 great-grandfather, and it was passed down as a middle name subsequently. Even though my dad didn't have the middle name, his oldest brother had that middle name, Lee. And I started doing a family tree because, I wasn't still satisfied. I wanted to know what this all meant. Well, I found out 2 things. Well, his last name was Allen, so it was Lee Allen. And this was back in the early 1800s, or middle 1800s. And I found out not only was his name Lee actually honoring the Confederate General Robert E. Lee, but the last name Allen was the last name of the largest slave plantation owner in southeast Missouri, where I was from. Which then I subsequently was very interested in, feeling a little bit indicted about all this thing as a 12-year-old. Can you imagine how I felt when I found these things out? And I've always been sort of like that existential, kind of kid that wants to find the deeper meaning. Well, not a kid anymore, but I like to think I am. And then I realized that in the yearbook, in my middle school yearbook, that there were 3 of us that were white with the last name Allen, but there were 20 some odd African American people with the last name Allen. And of course we know where that came from, because whenever their ancestors were released from slavery, they took the last name of the plantation owner. So what's in a name? I know that you're already thinking, well, this isn't relevant to this name change thing we're going through, but I'm going to try to make the case that it is. I then started to talk to my parents about this, and they didn't want to talk about it, because names involve a type of invested ownership, especially those people who were involved in giving the names. And my mom kept saying, well, we named you that with no harm in our hearts, because we don't own slaves. We don't honor the Confederate General Lee. We just wanted to do it because it was tradition, which reminds me of Fiddler on the Roof, but that's a different conversation. Tradition. And I just want to say, I love tradition, hence the reason why I'm wearing red, because it's Passion Sunday in most Christian churches, and, red is the color. And I love red, so even though I'm not, here carrying palms in to welcome Jesus into the vestige, I still like red. So I like tradition. Tradition is important. But that ownership of giving a name to someone bothered me. So I started talking to more people in my family, and more people, because my parents weren't willing to talk to me about it, because that was the name they gave me. And they meant no harm, and it was just going to be that way. And I still never came to some sort of resolution, but I said, one day when I grow up, I'm going to change my name. Because I wanted my name to reflect who I am more than who people thought I was. And so the story goes. Now eventually, I met a man and married him, and I took his last name, Demerit, and then I took my last name and made it into my middle name because I too didn't want to let go of everything at that point. Also, I wanted people to be able to find me on Facebook, let's be honest, so that Bryan Allen, I think, could still find me, right? My family and all that. That was the day. But where are you going with this, Bryan? Well, later on in life, I was challenged by the trans movement. I confess before you, I was really, really challenged by the they, them pronouns. I was an English teacher, and there's only one person. How can you have they as a pronoun? Tradition! And you know what? It is comical to think about that, but I ended up, unfortunately, hurting a few people along the way because of my outstanding ideas about the English language and wanting to preserve tradition. Further into that trans movement, one of the things that I started to realize is that people who come out as non-binary or trans often change their names to reflect who they are. And I started to go to different name-changing ceremonies that were actually held in the community. In fact, we remember when President Molly Marshall came here to speak, she had to kind of get out of here a little sooner than normal because she was going through some time to get to the next place where she was joining a naming ceremony and actually being a part of that for a person who'd come out as non-binary. I also realized over conversation with some of these same people that I unintentionally kind of hurt, I heard stories about how their parents were so frustrated and upset because they wanted to change their name that they gave them. Why can't you just keep the name and embrace who you are otherwise? Why change your name? But for people that need to change their name, they need to change their name. Now, I'm going to go back to a personal example as well. So, we all know I can't legally get married to two people. So, even though Josh is my partner, Josh can't simply go to the Social Security office with a marriage certificate and change his last name to our family's last name. He has to go through an entire process of adjudicatory nonsense to be able to change his name. And he wants to change his name for so many reasons, and I do use this story with permission, because I did ask him. No pressure, nothing, right? But one of the reasons why is because he's had such a disenfranchised experience with his family, and he wants to legally have the same name as the family that he belongs to from here ever after. But it's a challenge. He doesn't have the choice to do that other than coming up with a bunch of money. Now, I know you're going to say in Minnesota it's not that hard, and that is actually true, but this all started in Florida where it is very difficult. In fact, if you hearken back to when marriage equality was new, Daron and I went to Maryland to get married because it was still not legal in Florida, and when I went to the driver's license office in Florida to change my last name, I had to speak in semi-truths and sort of say, because they said, oh, you're married, why are you taking your wife's name? And I'm like, well, because I don't like my last name. But I didn't, sometimes you've got to do some things to get somewhere, because it wasn't legal yet to change your name in Florida because you married a person of the same gender. Now, all of this stuff I know has to do with things that are outside of what we're talking about as names in this congregation. But the other thing that I want to talk about is that in addition to all of the things that have been discussed sort of behind the scenes and in some committee meetings about changing our name, I think it leads me to the thought that one of the most important things is to have a name that expresses who one is, who a group or a family is, by actually then making a statement to the community about this is who we are. And we have a choice to choose a name that's different from the one that we've had. And I know, tradition, we were involved in getting that name. That's what we've known since we've been a part of this community. We meant no harm in that name. But there are other reasons besides that, and one of the things is I've been involved in name changes in other congregations, and one such congregation that it ended up changing its name did so primarily because they wanted to increase their wide reach of electronic ministry, which is what we called it back then. But we call it virtual church or whatever. And in fact, that particular church ended up bringing in more than half of its budget from people who were joining us from the outside after we abandoned the location-based name that we had before. Because location-based church names are the things that hold churches often, not always, back from actually growing in new and different ways. And also, I want to make the comment that several people who are out of this area who've talked to me about, oh, what's the name of your church? And I tell them, and they say, oh, you're white. Why are you pastoring a church that is an indigenous church? Now, it gives me an opportunity to explain that. But that misrepresents who we are. Because not everybody who comes and joins us, hopefully, will just be people that are around this neighborhood that know it's named after Dakota County. And for some people who believe that it's honoring Dakota, the people, I'll also comment that my ex, who is now deceased, whose name was Chogan, an Algonquin name from the Algonquin indigenous tribe who also had Navajo ancestry. I was in St. Louis at the time when I was dating him many, many years ago, you know, when the earth first cooled, as Molly Marshall said last time when she was here. I grew up in Missouri, and Chogan said, have you ever been to the Trail of Tears State Park in Cape Girardeau, Missouri? And I heard of the Trail of Tears my whole life when learning American history. But I realized after he took me to the Trail of Tears State Park, I had never actually really been able to embrace what the Trail of Tears was all about. And then my comment, after having heard this great entire story that taught me things that I'd never even thought about, and if you don't know what the Trail of Tears is, go Google it, because I don't have time to talk all about that today, but it's something you should know about. I said, well, why did they name it Trail of Tears State Park instead of naming it after an indigenous tribe? And Chogan said, because white people made this state park, not indigenous people, and white people don't get to use our name. He said, and this is the first time I've ever heard this expression, and you've probably heard it now, if you've never had your rights decided by the United States Supreme Court, you have privilege. And he said that people, indigenous people in southeast Missouri, argued with the people making the state park, saying, you need to name it after what you did, not after what we did. So you don't get to use our name. Again, I know that's not completely relevant to everything that we're talking about, but it's really important to understand the sensibility about what decisions we make. Now, my job as a pastoral figure is not to superimpose my ideology on everyone. My job is to expose and thicken the narratives that need to be thickened that might otherwise not be recognizable. And that's why I'm bringing this to you today, because I believe that we have such an opportunity to choose a name that more fairly represents what we're trying to do in a forward motion sense, so that we can move ourselves not just to bring more people in from a variety of places, but move ourselves against the internalized conservatism that comes from our privilege, which is very challenging to talk about when you're talking with people who are of progressive ideology. But internalized conservatism is something that plagues a lot of people because we still struggle with privilege. I know I do. And I have partners who are not of privilege in many ways, even though there are always ways that we're privileged. And so I get a unique perspective about a lot of these things. So for some, these words are hard to hear. And for some, this whole entire process is difficult. And again, my job is not to say to you, you need to do this, because that's not my job. This is a congregationally oriented polity type of setting. But I challenge you not only to think about the name as we move forward, but also what we call our group. I, like many of you, am really fond of trying to reclaim some of the theological words. Again, tradition is something that I love, like the word church, like the word congregation, all of those things. I like to take some of the original Christian, Judeo-Christian history and reinterpret it in a UU sense. And that's okay. But I also realize there's so much trauma in the world that's associated with people who would have and have done the things that have happened in this world to do harm by using theological words like church. And I guarantee you that if you make decisions that start to widen the circle, to open yourselves to other ways of being in fellowship with one another, by our very description, that you will draw more people in. And I know this is not all about numbers and church growth. That's not why I'm talking about this. But the message that we have, the people here, the love that you have, that we celebrate, all of that is something that the world needs now more than ever. And there are people who are not coming to be a part, either in face-to-face or in online, because of the way that our name is now, both in the description from the indigenous group as well as in the word church. That doesn't mean we have to change it. I'm just exposing truths because that's what I'm supposed to do. And so as we move forward, I challenge us to think about that reading from the house on Mango Street, which I struggled through because my eyes aren't what they used to be. Because as it goes on to say later in the book that she comes out of the closet again. And we all have closets. She comes out of the closet and embraces a name that actually more appropriately mirrors who she is or was inside to the world. And how can we expose ourselves externally by the internal things that we do in this congregation as far as our decision-making process goes. May it be so. What's that?
Choice of concerns. Should we do it?
Oh, we didn't do that yet?
We did.
I did that too? Why didn't somebody stop it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
What do you want?
Go ahead.
Yeah, do the music. Sorry. I have to be honest with you. I'm shaking because I was really nervous about what I was doing. So I apologize about. I rarely get nervous. So part of it was the deletion, but like I'm nervous. So I don't.
It's always
Didn't show.
reflective music.
Take a deep breath. Let it out slowly.
We salute you with love. This is the sound salute
Okay.
amor.
Okay. Hold on here. Okay.
So much for tradition, right? But perhaps it was serendipitous, that delete button, that backspace button. So before we move on to the time of reflection, let us go back in time and share our joys and concerns if you've moved to do so. And if you have a joy or concern online, please speak up and Kathy will light a candle for you.
I have a friend of mine who had in the past struggled with drugs. He went to rehab a little over 6 years ago, and he had a relapse, and he just got back from his 30 days. He is 30 days sober again, and so for hopefully a longer journey this time. He's trying to beat 6 years this time. So.
I was concerned about the lack of people running for treasurer, and I'm joyful to find out today that somebody is going to be running for treasurer. DUUC, or whatever the new name is, will have a treasurer.
Had the chance, sorry. Had the chance to volunteer for Annabelle's fun run last week, which was really fun. She did 28 laps. So it's pretty cool.
Chuck asked me to light a candle, so I'm assuming he's asking me to light a candle for him about the concert today. But it
didn't specify.
Yeah, he did. But also, I just also want to light a candle because we celebrated our 44th wedding anniversary on Friday. And we decided that we're going to go for another 44. Piece of cake, right? Right?
I'm thinking that's what he really wanted you to like.
Well, I also kind of, if we have time, yeah. So many years ago, maybe 8 years ago, he came up to light a candle on this Sunday, and he was talking about the love of his life. And I'm like, wow, that's so cool. And then he said, yeah, Speeb Squad, the Barbershop Chorus Society, is their anniversary today. I go, what? But we're still married.
This is a candle for, it's a concern and then a joy. Schoolmate of ours, who was Jim's elementary school and childhood friend, just recently passed away after a long battle with cancer. But we also have a joy. It is Annabelle's little cousin Leanne's birthday today. Right. And she's 2. Little Leanne, Joe.
This is a joy as a member of our new expanded social media team. We put up a official, like a designed Facebook post this week with the help Dan, and I work with Stephanie. We have meeting with Kathy and Jim and Chuck. So please follow and like them and share, please. Yeah. So our goal is for each our church event we will have a post. So
Yes.
yay.
It's okay. Get him to like them.
Please.
Oh, so
Just-
difficult. Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Let it sit in there.
Okay.
Go to.
Oh.
It's coming back. There we go. It came back.
All right.
Yay.
All right, this is my joy. I leave on Tuesday for Ireland. And I will miss everyone here, but you are in good hands with Chuck and Bryan and Kathy and Suki for the music.
So I'll see you in May.
Thank you for your patience with me today. I should light a candle for that. Let me do that first. It's really hard to challenge a group of people that you love so much. I'll light a final candle for all those joys and concerns that remain unspoken. May we know that whatever befalls us in life, we are held in the loving embrace of this community. And now we say together, for all of these joys and concerns, both spoken and unspoken,
we hold you in our hearts.
Are we reflecting now?
And now,
Can I
yes.
just say what the next step of the process is?
Sure.
Could I do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So as you know, we took, for the last week, people could send in via SurveyMonkey name ideas. Are you able to get to that easily?
Right there.
Oh, there it is. Okay. So here's what came in. Some of these are AI because we had agreed to let AI pick some of our names. So some of them are AI, but I thought I'm not going to tell you which ones are AI at first. So we'll kind of see where we go from there. So what's going to happen is I'm going to put this like on a back chair or something, and then I have strips of little star stickers. Each little strip has 5 stars. So each one of you can take one of those strips, and you can use your 5 stars however you want. So like if you really, really, really like one name, you can put all 5 stars on that name, okay? And then what we'll do is we'll take the top 2 or 3 name solutions, and the naming committee will do all the research to make sure that they're not already taken, et cetera, and that'll be what'll be on our ballot then on the 27th. So this is the same as this. And people online, people online, all you have to do is like call in and one of us will put stars on here for you.
They could do the chat.
Or in the chat, that works too, yeah, in the chat. So I'm gonna go put this and this star, the envelope with the star strips in the back.
You're doing the voting now, today?
To narrow it, just to narrow, because we can't put all 20 of these names.
Okay,
Do you see what I'm saying? So we're just narrowing the field today.
okay.
Yeah. Okay, now reflect away.
I have a quick question. Have we heard from
Do we want the
any?
microphone?
Well, I'm supposed to be doing that. It's my job.
Microwave, sorry.
Okay. I'm wondering if we've heard from any of the indigenous folks that were communicating with.
Not yet, I'm
Okay.
gonna pick up the phone and call. No, we've contacted, is this on?
Okay, we've contacted 3 local communities to ask. I addressed a letter to their tribal chairman. In our little test run, we asked the guide at the Shakopee Community's wonderful museum. You've got to go there. I can't. Hokochop. I can give you the address and the name. Yeah, it's a fabulous community. We asked the guide there if they thought the Dakota would mind if we used their name, and he said no. And earlier I had called up the tribal offices of the
Blocking on the name.
Pine River, Shakopee. It's Shakopee, Midwakanton. There's Lower Sioux. That's a hard one to remember. I called up their offices and talked with their community education director, just cold call. And he said no, they wouldn't mind, but he said, write a letter to the tribal chairman. And there is this resistance that none of them want to speak for all indigenous people or all Dakota or even everyone in their community. There's a lot of modesty. No, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I don't see a problem with it. That's the only answer we've gotten so far. But yeah, I sent the letters out and asked for responses by email, and I let the tribal chairman or the community chairman know, we aren't expecting you to speak for the whole, people. But just let us know if you'd mind. And I haven't heard back from any of them yet, so I was gonna get on the phone on Monday and just call them and see if I can reach them, like, oh, you got my letter, did you have a chance to think about it, would you mind if we used your name? But, yeah, so no, we haven't heard back from any of the official requests, we have 2 informal requests.
Bryan, I just want to thank you for what you said, because I think I've been stuck in the tradition of Dakota UU as being our name, but now you've opened my mind to thinking about other names. So thank you.
Bryan, thanks for what you said also. Sorry it made you nervous, but it was very meaningful. And as you make your selections, keep in mind that the new name has to fit on these name tags.
Change the name tag.
So I have a question. I think there are some in our congregation who identify as atheist or agnostic. And I'm just wondering what they think of the suggestion, tapestry of faiths, if they would feel like excluded if we chose that name. No. No.
Just as an academic, in world religions, atheism is considered a religion. I know that it's not, but I just wanted to say that.
Well, that's not how they self-identify.
I know.
Okay, I do feel the need to get up and I was going to say this for the annual meeting, my reasons for wanting to keep Dakota in our name, affirmative reasons. And yeah, I'm sorry, I don't mean to challenge. I loved your comments, and I think we have to express different ideas, and that's what we're here for, to connect with each other and talk back and forth. Okay. But basically, we're a spiritual community, not a material, there's a materialistic world and a spiritual world. And I come here because a community of faith, whatever you call it, is a place where we can practice spiritual realities, get in touch with spiritual realities, get outside the material world, and talk, in spiritual terms to each other and encourage spirituality. In the spiritual realm, even if we think of the people who in the material world call themselves Dakota, we are one. If we stick in the materialistic world, we're the descendants of the colonizers, and they are the victims of the colonization. If we go in the spiritual world, we are one. We are, as it's so hard to speak in the spiritual reality, but we felt that pain. We are one with the people who suffered on the Trail of Tears. We are one with all the people that, our material world ancestors oppressed when they colonized this place. We are one. And again, if we were naming a record store or something, I'd be worried that we would be confused with the we're the material world descendants of the colonizers, and we don't want people to think we're the descendants of the material world people who got colonized. But this is spiritual. I want to acknowledge there is a spiritual reality, and we are one. Okay, that's theoretical. Location, I think it's a good discussion. If we want to discuss, do we want to become a congregation that's half online and half in person? Maybe we do aspire to be, have a national following or something. But Keith and I moved to Egan, and we were eager to find a face-to-face local community where we could connect with other humans face-to-face, not online. And, we aspire to have a warm, loving, face-to-face human community. We can get online stuff many, many places, but I would like this congregation to aspire to be a very tight human flesh and blood in one location community. There's a question of honoring. We choose names to honor people or to dishonor them. And you know, when the Thomas Jefferson, we talked to the naming committee, talked to the Thomas Jefferson Church. They changed their name because they rejected Thomas Jefferson, and they didn't want to be associated with that anymore. You know, all the military bases, you know, got rid of the names of Confederate generals, and you got rid of a Confederate general name because you don't want to be associated. I can't think of an instance where rejecting a name is a way to honor them. You honor something by taking its name or by naming yourself after it, even if you're not that thing. You choose names to say what you want to be, what you want to aspire. Dakota means friend and ally. That's the meaning of the word. And if we went to France, we would not want to call ourselves friend and avoid saying the word ami. You know, if we went any other country on earth, we would want to introduce ourselves as friend in the language of the indigenous people. I can't see anything wrong with wanting to call ourselves friend and ally in the indigenous language of the community where you are. And the other thing is, we are on Dakota land. I mean, that is where Dakota. That's where we are. This is Dakota territory. So those are some of the things I think about, and believe it or not, there's even more. But I did have a little handout to go with the one Dawn prepared that goes into a few more things. But that's my thinking. I want to honor friendship. I want to honor allyship. I want to honor unity. I want to honor the Dakota people. I want to honor and aspire to be friendly and connected to the land and the people. And I think Dakota is a word that does that. So that's my thoughts. And again, I'm not going to apologize. We throw ideas out there and people think about them and we connect. So.
I just want to add that because I'm a sound healer, I'm looking at it from the perspective of your name, Dakota, as a resonant frequency. You've had that name for a long time, and you have built a resonance of the community, a resonant field within that name and of the people. And when you get a different name, you're going to have a different frequency, a different energy, a different, does that make sense to anyone? What I'm talking about? But anyway, it's more an energy kind of thing for me.
Just picking up on that theme, it does kind of feel like starting over, almost like a starting from scratch.
I forgot to say one more thing. I want to thank Dawn for bringing up this discussion. I want to thank you for continuing it, because I just think this is so valuable for us to go through this exercise of telling each other what we value and what we aspire to be as a community. And so thank you, again, for bringing this up, and thank you for continuing it.
And all the work you guys have done.
Yes, thank you.
Well, I think just the practice of having a discussion where we're all in different places. We often agree a lot. And just the practice of being able to get up, Bryan was nervous, and it's not easy, but it's good to practice it.
I think maybe a lot of the younger generation now doesn't go to church. I think that's what surveys show, and I'll just speak for my kids. The word church And I know like when Minnesota Valley, their founding members did not want to use the word church because there were atheists and agnostics, so that's why they call themselves a fellowship. So possibly, Dakota UU Fellowship. I think that's on the list as one of the options, so just something to think about, change it from church to fellowship for people that are hung up.
Take that to the microphone. So does anybody want me to just read those aloud?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna use my cheat sheet. Because it's closer. Okay, I also numbered them to make it easier for people to just say number blah, blah, blah. Number 1, Covenant of the Flaming Chalice with the tagline, a Unitarian Universalist Community. Number 2, Dakota Community. Number 3, Dakota Unitarian Universalist Church, that came in twice. Number 4, Dakota Unitarian Universalist Community. Number 5, Dakota Unitarian Universalist Congregation. And number 6, Dakota Unitarian Universalists, just dropping the name church. So actually fellowship isn't on here, but we could add it if you want. Number 7, Embrace Community Church. Number 8, Inclusive Haven. Number 9, Life Harmony. Number 10, Many Paths Unitarian Universalist Church. Number 11, Open Heart Collective. Number 12, Open Horizon Unitarian Universalist. Number, somehow I got screwed up, 13 is Peace Community. Number 14, South Suburbs Unitarian Universalist. Number 15, Tapestry of Faiths, a Unitarian Universalist Weaving. Number 16, Unity Grove Fellowship. Number 17, Unity Circle. Number 18, Welcoming Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Number 19, Welcoming Hearth Unitarian Universalist Church. Does anybody want to throw another one up there? We can add it. I can go write it on the thing right now, if someone gives me a pen.
I just thought of one, I like Carrie's We Are One.
We are one, just we are one, or we are one
You could
church.
add something onto the end of it, but I just like that.
I just want to make sure that people are also aware of acronyms. So Dakota Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, DUUF, or the Welcoming Unitarian Universalist Fellowship is. So.
Yeah, I don't want to.
I'm adding number 20, we are one church, or just we are one?
I don't know, I really actually.
If you're referring back to my we are one, I think unity is that word.
The problem with unity, though, keep in mind, there's another denomination called unity.
Oh, never mind,
Be
okay.
careful about that.
Take Alice's suggestion.
Unity, there's unity also.
I have one.
Go ahead, Megan.
Unitarian Universalist Church of Dakota County.
That's right, Dan.
That allows the use of Dakota, but maybe it doesn't offend or sound as though we're part of the Dakota Native American.
That's a good point, and on that note,
I would like to speak against.
please don't put your star by Dakota Community.
Community is what the smallest groups call themselves, like the Lower Sioux community and the Shakopee Metawankiton community and the Pine River community. And
Dakota Community does
that to me sound a little bit
too much like
we're pretending
to be them rather than honoring them.
I suggest Spirit of Love.
Spirit of Love Church or just Spirit of Love?
Spirit of Love, UU.
Okay.
I was asked to say this on the microphone. I understand the idea of some people not wanting to use the word church, but changing it to fellowship, it feels sexist to me and exclusive.
You can take that up, we are one. Take that up. Yeah, just put you, please. All right.
Yeah, I would say that there are many churches that just, I'm saying churches, but there are many congregations that just say such and such Unitarian Universalists, and just leave it at that. I know we're getting close to time, so let's try to wrap it up, but we can still have conversations afterwards, and we've got 2 weeks before the congregational annual meeting.
Just to follow up on Kelly's, I tried so hard to find the non-sexist term for fellowship, and I couldn't find one.
There's not. It's kind of like, just to wrap that conversation up with a little bit of lightness, Molly Marshall, who came and spoke to us recently on April Fool's Day, sent out an email to all of the faculty that said, hereafter and forward from this point, the United Theological Seminary would be called the United Theological Ovarium. Because the word seminary comes from, and we all like, let's vote on it, let's do this, I'm ready. So with that, I'd like to just bring us to a pause, not an end of that conversation. And as we wrap up the service, which, we've gone over an hour, but I think this is really important, and thank you for being patient with me again. So what I'd like to do is invite you to rise as you're able and join us in our closing hymn, which is number 300. Forth in peace and love, and let's keep on discussing the future of our congregation as we move to spread more love and light than ever before. Go in peace. Please hang around and have some refreshments and also, and also, just for those that might be interested, because it's Holy Week and close to Easter, I brought extra eggs in case anybody wants them.
So for those of you online, if you want to vote, just chat what you want to, and we'll pick it up from the chat thing. So you get 5 markers, and you can put 3 on one name and 2 on another, however you want. So I'm gonna ask them, so please just chat it in.
Well, I